All right, so today I want to talk about return to sender in the sense of sending somebody back their energy. So, what do I mean? Well, let's say your spouse had a really bad day at work. Maybe they got fired, maybe the boss is bugging them about something, and they came home and they had this giant ball of toxic anger, frustration, everything else. They had this giant toxic ball that they got from work. And they came home and they said, here, catch. And before you knew it, you caught it for them. And everything that they had been feeling, they took out on you with words, dirty looks, usually words, yelling, things like that, right? We're not just talking about coming home and cursing about the boss. Instead of cursing about the boss, they come home and they might complain about how the house looks, or complain that you never want to do the things that they do. They will have some kind of complaint that is a legitimate thing that they might have been wanting to talk to you about, but now it is in the shape of this giant ball of toxic fire that they acquired at work that might have just come from their boss, but now they're passing it off to you. Now, what do we do? Now, sometimes when you're in a relationship, if something like that is only going to happen a couple times a year, you might just have enough empathy and sympathy for that person to say, you know what? I get it. I get what you're going through. I'll catch your stupid ball. I'll put it over here. And then hopefully later you'll come back and say, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And then boom, the ball is extinguished. That can happen. However, if you're dealing with the situation where somebody is just consistently and constantly angry, frustrated, cursing, and just overall unhappy, you're not going to want to hold on to the energy that they're putting out. Even though it's not all of theirs. Some of it is the energy that they're picking up from other places. But generally speaking, unhappy people are usually willing to take on other people's unhappy energy until it just becomes this burning inferno. So the way you're going to handle this is, again, in private. Okay? You're not going to walk up to them and say, I'm sending all that energy that you just gave me back to you. All right? Because it is not a good idea to verbally tell them what you're doing. So you're going to do this in your meditation practice or whatever practice that you use. Maybe you go for long walks and you have your ruminating thoughts. And you're just going to, as though you were saying an affirmation, you're just going to say, all of the negative energy that so-and-so sent to me, I'm sending it back to them. All of the toxic fear that so-and-so gave to me, I'm sending it back to them. All of the negative emotions that they gave to me, I'm going to give it back to them. Now, be specific. I'm not talking about whatever they did. I'm not talking about how it made you feel, because those are your emotions that you need to handle on your own. I'm talking about they felt things, they lashed out and said things to you. You're taking those feelings that they were feeling and you're sending it back to them. Now, what's going to happen when you do this? Well, if you've done it right, you will immediately feel lighter. You'll feel better. The ruminating thoughts that, you know how many times you're sitting around and maybe you're having a certain kind of day and you're like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I thinking this way? This isn't me. These thoughts and feelings are unfamiliar to me. Many times that's because you have taken somebody else's giant ball of toxic fire and you're holding on to it for them. Okay? So when you send them back their energy, a lot of those thoughts, they're just going to be gone. Those anxieties and fears that you were feeling that were not yours are going to be gone. Now, that's the good part. The flip side of that is they may then have a reoccurrence of that energy because they had it, it was theirs, and then they just came home and said, "Boop, there you go, catch." And so they were just scot-free. Phew, I'm glad I don't have to deal with those anymore. And now what you've done is you said in quiet and in private, oh no, you have to deal with it. That's your stuff. That's not my ball of fire. I got my own ball of fire over here. All right, I'm good. It's warm. It's not too hot. I keep it under control. I'm not sharing it with anybody. It's here. It's mine. This inferno, okay, right back at you, and they may feel it. They may suddenly have a bad day out of nowhere. They may suddenly end up in a bad mood out of nowhere. Now, this is where the part where becoming a loving or being a loving partner comes into play. You have to recognize and know that this might happen. So if you notice that it is happening and they're starting to have a bad day or they're starting to get frustrated, if they don't immediately lash out at you, that is when you can come in and do what you would have done on the original day had they not thrown the ball of fire at you, which is just come up to them and try to help them feel better. Whatever floats their boat. Maybe they want a head massage, maybe they want a neck massage, maybe they just want your attention. Whatever it is that you know is going to soothe them and help them feel better, if you can do that before they throw the ball back at you, then you might be able to get that ball to turn down and become like yours, where it's just a small little space heater that you keep under control. Now, again, when I say do this in private, I mean don't tell them, okay? You're going to do it in private, but I mean don't tell them, okay? Do not tell them. Even if they are on the same wavelength as you, nobody wants to hear all that anger you gave to me 2 weeks ago, I sent back to you. Nobody wants to hear that, okay? You can be aware that you did it. If you see it starting to hit them, help them through it. Again, you would have done that when they came home 2 weeks ago, but they lashed out and called you names, right? So now maybe you have an opportunity to meet it head on and help them through it. Now, of course, if they're the kind of person that as soon as they feel frustration or something like that, that they're just throwing the ball back at you, well, then it's probably time for a conversation, a different conversation about the nature of the relationship. But this is one way that you can sort of diffuse the situation, and you can use this purposely. Okay? You can use it purposefully. If you're strong enough to not take the things that they're saying to you out of anger personally. So if they come home with their ball of fire and they throw it at you, you might just be able to consciously be like, all right, I'm going to take that. I'm going to put that over here. That's fine. Why don't you go have a drink? Why don't you go have a smoke? Why don't you go do something? Make yourself feel better. I got fire over here. And then a couple weeks later, okay, you need to get rid of it. You can't hold on to it for forever, right? But if you're in a situation where it's the weekend and they've had a good couple of days and things are good and they're going to be receptive to the things that you would do to ease them when they feel frustrated, at that point, you can go to the other room and send them back their energy. And then if it hits, you help them through it. Sometimes the energy just goes back into wherever it came from. You know what I mean? But the important part is that you don't hang on to it. It's not your giant ball of toxic fire. Return to sender.